Our last compositional technique that we'll be discussing this semester is called point of view, and it's one of the most powerful and one of my favorites. So, the purpose of this assignment is to experiment with unusual points of view. We are used to taking photographs just at our eye level, right? We look at the world, we hold our camera up, we take the picture. But there's a lot of very interesting things to be noticed when we change that point of view. We're going to purposefully take photos from every position except eye level. And this is the last compositional technique that we will explore, like I said. So just to review, we've talked about getting close. We've talked about leading lines, rule of thirds, another very important one. And this one is point of view. So the first part, topic of point of view category is bird's eye. And that's like a bird's from above. Imagine a bird flying above scenes in our daily lives, looking down and snapping a picture if they had a camera. So this can be done in stairwells, right? Looking down from balconies, stairwells, ladders, anything that you have around that you can get up onto. Sometimes just chairs in a classroom. Taking a photograph at, say, books on a table from our normal point of view, not very exciting, but even simply the act of getting up on a chair, looking down at the pattern that the books make on a table can make a difference and makes us notice the world in a different way, and one in which we're not used to seeing. Here's one from a balcony or from an upper story window. It tends to flatten things. Notice how this looks very flat, this figure here, although we know, of course, this figure is three-dimensional and we'd see it normally at eye level. But because we're seeing it from above, it almost makes it look as flat as the shadow. From high vantage points of stairs. There are a number of places in Trinidad and around the area that have steep stairs or steep trails that if you look down, you can get an interesting point of view. Here's another way where you can use stairs as sort of a pattern. Again, it's flattening from above. This one is kind of trippy because in some ways I feel like it's looking up or down depending on how you think about it. But technically it's at the top of the escalator, going down the escalator and seeing, this is also a great example of leading lines, isn't it? Again, a staircase, this one times a spiral one, creating a really interesting spiral design. So around Arcata High, you might go up onto the upper levels of the school and look down and see what kind of points of view you can get. Or if you are in Old Town, there's some buildings that have a few stories. We don't have a lot of tall buildings in this area, but there are a few. The BSS building at Humboldt State has a really beautiful and interesting stairwell and can get some pretty interesting things there. So here's an artist who really plays around and takes advantage of that bird's eye view, Kylie Spar. She is a dancer and takes a lot of dance-inspired photographs, very, very graceful. Oftentimes the models are dressed in what looks like ballet or modern dance wear. She depicts herself in various dreamlike states, works with a lot of landscape kind of elements outdoors in ice, water. She uses that ballet training with these dramatic and performative photographs. So she sets these up. A lot of them are self-portraits. This one is so interesting. I think it's just sort of a water kind of petering out, but she makes it look as if it's sort of coming out, or maybe she's hanging from this black fabric-like shape. So then the other category in point of view is bug's eye. And this is from view from below, like as if you were a tiny bug looking up at the world, or just right at ground level, getting that camera right at ground level or down below things to make the photo look a little different than we're used to seeing. This one's looking up at the violin a little bit. Oftentimes putting that camera down on the ground is so interesting. We are not used to seeing little plants, little blades of grass up close unless we're laying down on the ground, which I guess happens occasionally on a nice sunny day, but not very often. So it definitely changes the way that we see the world. Taking photographs of portraits of people from slightly below gives them a sense of drama and kind of a regalness. I love this photograph of these 4 women dressed in regalia, and it makes them look just sort of a little bit larger than life and a little bit more formal. Here's another Kylie Sparr photo taken from below this time instead of above. This photo it was taken in the school parking lot. So you can find really beautiful and interesting things to take photograph, even just in our normal everyday world, by changing your point of view. Here is a photo taken of an electrical tower. I'm not saying you should do that. That seems dangerous. But it is really interesting looking up and seeing the pattern created by all those metal bars. Here's another one taken down at ground level. And you can see why it's called bug's eye view, right? You can kind of imagine the bug crawling along the forest floor and encountering this large mushroom. Getting in close kind of pairs really nicely with the changing the point of view. This one isn't dramatically from below, but it definitely, you can imagine these watches hanging down from the ceiling. You could even probably have done more dramatic, like looking up towards the chains in the attached to the pocket watches, but this definitely gives a little bit of a feeling of a bug's eye. Here's a classic bug's eye. If it does happen to rain or if it's moist in the morning, so with dew, definitely give it a shot trying to take a photograph down at ground level, because it can have some really beautiful and surprising effects. So your assignment, take about half bird's eye photos and half bug's eye photos. So if you are going to take about 20, obviously that would be about 10 birds and 10 bugs. I'm not going to count, down to the one, but just sort of, I want you to experiment with both techniques. And then evaluate your photos carefully. Choose ones with the strongest composition that clearly meets the project criteria. So not only is it a great photo, but is it a good example of the bug's eye or bird's eye view? And this time you're going to turn in your best bird's eye and bug's eye photos into Google Classroom, okay? Up until now, we just told you to choose your best one for each unit. But because these are 2 different sort of techniques in one, I want to see 2 photos, so your best bird's eye and your best bug's eye. Please do edit your photos in Photoshop to make it look its best. Maybe you need to crop, maybe you need to add vibrance, anything you think that would make your photo look its absolute best before you turn it in. And that is our last compositional unit.